Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brian Trasher with Laws and Sausage TV with another weekly political breakdown. And what a week it has been. If you remember the last video, we broadcasted from our Washington, D.C. offices, and we were prepared to go attend President Trump's first State of the Union address to Congress. Now, talking about the speech real quick. The speech was pretty well received. It seems like the American people thought it was fairly uplifting and positive as far as the themes go. I thought there was a lot of altitude to the words in the speech itself. A lot of really good shout outs to people that were guests of the President and First Lady who had some really good stories. And I think that it fed the overall kind of uplifting and optimistic theme of the speech. But of course, Washington being Washington, within hours of the speech being over and everybody coming together, it was back to the political grindstone of gridlock and partisanship. And most of what drove that was the anticipation of the release of this controversial FISA memo that was prepared by the House Intelligence Committee. And it all kind of revolved around how the FBI and some other certain partisan characters handled the way that wiretap warrants were granted to the FBI to be able to spy on then candidate Trump and members of his campaign. The memo came out to a lot of protest from not just Democrats, but from the FBI itself. The FBI director, even though when he read it himself the next day, the deputy director, Andrew McCabe, was either fired or quit the FBI earlier than anticipated, and now we know why. Andrew McCabe seemed to be instrumental in using this now discredited dossier about then candidate Donald Trump in order to obtain FISA warrants. So let's talk about what that means real quick, because regardless of what party you're in, this should kind of freak you out a little bit, okay? Basically what happened is that the FBI on like 3 separate occasions went to the FISA court to try to get permission to spy on Donald Trump and his campaign, and were denied. Then they came back with this, which is now we know is a kind of a fake dossier of information that was not true. There was no truth to any of the information in this dossier, and used this in order to convince a FISA judge that, hey, we really do need to spy on this guy. And they also apparently worked with members of the media to plant stories out there that would kind of lend further credibility to this information, and ultimately received a FISA warrant, which basically means that anybody with money and political power and the will seems like they can get a warrant to spy on an American citizen. That is what I think everybody should be freaked out about. Now, of course, the Democrats are saying that this memo was written just by the Republicans on the committee, and even members of the FBI said that there are some omissions and things that make it not necessarily true. Well, all that's going to come out in the wash, because as we know today, on Monday, the House Intelligence Committee voted to declassify the memo that was prepared by the Democrats on the committee. It's supposed to rebut the memo, which is very bizarre. You either have an explanation of what the intelligence said or you don't, but apparently now you have 2 sides going back and forth saying that, no, our story's true, no, our story's true. But another interesting thing that was just sort of reported today, and not with a lot of fanfare, if you ask me, is that Devin Nunes, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, said that there was going to be at least 4 or 5 more memos to come out in the future, and that next they kind of went after the FBI on the first one, or at least the high command of the FBI, who obviously were involved in some pretty illegal or unethical things. Now they're going to go after the State Department, and how the State Department was involved in some of these activities as well. So if I'm the Democrats, I'm holding off on releasing a rebuttal to the first memo. I'm waiting for it all to come out, and then I'll release a memo, or I'll prepare a memo and ask the committee to vote on it. Because now what you have is the committee saying, okay, look, we'll release your side of the story too, but there's going to be more stuff coming out, and there's nothing stopping the committee from saying, hey, we already released one of your memos, We're not going to be going to the American people with two different stories anymore. We're just going to be speaking with one voice as a committee. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm saying that that's what I'd be afraid of if I'm a Democrat. So nevertheless, very interesting stuff going on in D.C. We're just days away from, you remember that continuing resolution that was passed by Congress after the shutdown to keep funding the government. That deadline is coming up in just a few days. Rumor has it that there's not going to be another shutdown, that they're going to kick the can and come up with another continuing resolution to go into March and continue funding the government, because it does not seem that Congress and the White House are any closer to a deal that includes sufficient immigration reform, as well as how to agree on how to spend the American people's tax dollars for the next fiscal year. So, having said all that, a lot of stuff going on, but it's another week, and one thing that we know is that there's going to be more controversy and more news to talk about in Washington, D.C. So, stay tuned. Put your comments in the section below. Please like our YouTube channel, Laws and Sausage TV, and reach out if you have any questions or comments. Please, you can go to lawsandsausage.net. That's the website, and we're very close to wrapping up some of our first initial interviews with the political newsmakers in and around Washington, D.C. That is going to be the actual Laws and Sausage TV show, and that's going to be released very soon. It's Mardi Gras time here in New Orleans, so believe it or not, it's hard to get people to work right now, but that's okay, because it's party time, and then we'll get down to business afterwards. Thanks, everybody. This is Brian Trasher signing off for another edition of Laws and Sausage TV. See you next time.